of you who don't know me, my name is Steph. I am new to this little YouTube community, so if you guys are here for the first time, welcome, and if you guys are returning, thank you guys so much for clicking back on this video. So today I wanted to actually talk to you guys about like my baby registry. But when I was working on that last night and trying to plan everything out, I realized that I kind of want to go more in depth with you guys for that kind of video, just because like I feel like there was a lot of things that was on my registry for my first pregnancy that I did and didn't use. So today instead I'm going to share with you guys my breastfeeding journey. I know this is a really controversial topic, and I just wanted to quickly say that everything that I share in this video today is based on my experience and my experience only. Probably I'll throw in a little bit of advice or like things that I've heard from close friends or family members, but basically everything today is going to be based on my own personal journey with breastfeeding. A little bit about me: I have been exclusively breastfeeding my daughter Madison, who is now 2 years old. She just turned 2. She's probably like 2 and like 3 months old, and we are still actually breastfeeding a little bit. We're trying to wean, but we'll see how that goes. So I decided to exclusively breastfeed because honestly, I just hate doing dishes, and I know that, or like I knew when I was pregnant that if I were to give her bottles and stuff like that, that I would have to do all the dishes and sterilize and all that, and that just sounded like something I didn't want to do. So that was one of the reasons why I was really like, you know, I really want to make this breastfeeding thing work. Aside from all the dishwashing too, like I just knew that I didn't want to have to get up, like, so our room is upstairs, the kitchen is downstairs. I knew I didn't want to have to get up and like warm milk and everything like that, which I know now that they have like portable warmers and things like that, but I don't know, it just felt like a daunting task to have to do, especially postpartum. I just wanted to like get her on the boob and just be done with it. But I mean, more importantly also, it was more for like, you know, the nutrients and all like the great things that we hear about breastfeeding, like, you know, all the antibodies and just, you know, how our milk is just magical, and you know, if they're sick, our breast milk changes. If they are having an upset stomach, our breast milk changes. Like just all of these magical things that I hear about breast milk. So that's why I really wanted to provide my daughter the nutrients that I could through my breasts. Not to say that there's anything wrong with formula feeding, but again, this is just my personal reason of why I wanted to really breastfeed. So I'm gonna walk you guys through my journey from the time that I gave birth up until now, I guess. If you guys see me looking down, I do have the notes on my phone. So a little bit about my birth story. Right after Maddie came out of my belly, the doctors immediately placed her on my chest, and we had a little skin to skin moment. And it's crazy because immediately she started bobbing her head looking for my breast. So I thought that was really interesting. I did not expect that at all. I didn't know that that was a thing. I still don't know if that's a thing. So just heads up, this video might get a little TMI because I'm gonna be talking about like boobs. As she was bobbing looking for my breast, luckily she found it very quickly. I do have breast implants, so my breasts are a little larger, I guess. I don't know if that like contributed to anything. Luckily it was easy for her to find and latch on, and I just mentioned this because I know that sometimes depending on like, you know, everybody's nipple sizes and stuff like that, that could affect how easy it is for your child to like latch on, for your baby to latch on. Like for example, I know like if your nipple isn't really protruding, they have like little nipple shields or like nipple guards or things that help your nipple to like kind of extend. But luckily I didn't have any problem there. She immediately found it and she started nursing like within the first 2 minutes of coming out of my belly. At that point it was really actually kind of magical, not to sound like all cliche and everything. She latched on and she was like sucking, and I wasn't really quite sure if I was giving milk yet or like colostrum, but I'm sure something was there because I think it does come immediately after you give birth, and she was actually like on there for a while. So I don't know if it was for comfort or if she was actually getting like colostrum or anything. We actually had to stay in the hospital for about 3 days because she wasn't having a bowel movement, and they wanted her to have at least one bowel movement before we left. So staying at the hospital, I will say that the nursing experience or my breastfeeding experience was very, very smooth. Like everything was going well. She was latching on just fine. We were feeding on time. I wasn't like in too much pain. Like everything felt really, really good, and just everything was going great. As soon as we got home, things changed instantly. Okay, so I kind of want to back up and say that I really didn't know what to expect with breastfeeding. I have a whole bunch of like family and friends that have already had babies, but I guess like I want to say they've warned me about it and they've talked to me about it and just kind of told me like the struggles that came along with breastfeeding, but I guess I just didn't really like think about it. I want to say immediately, like the first night, things were just so hard for me. Like my boobs became super engorged, and if you don't know what engorged is, I actually didn't know until I had a baby. But engorged is like when they get really like swollen and huge and just filled with milk. Like it's the most painful thing ever if you don't release all the milk. The first night I got really engorged, and I wasn't quite sure on how to use my breast pump, which by the way, I feel like we need more resources, or maybe I just didn't find any resources to like use a breast pump correctly. I don't know. If they have training for that, I highly suggest you attend, just so you know what to expect when pumping, because I wasn't really sure what to do, or like, you know, the pump came with different, what do they call it, like different sizes, and I wasn't sure what a good size was for my breast, because I don't know, there's like a whole bunch of rules, like it should cover your areola, or it should cover this much, or the nipple shouldn't be touching the inside of the circle. But anyways, I didn't really know how to use my pump. Honestly, my boobs were just so engorged that I didn't know what to do. So I think I remember it was like 11 o'clock at night, or maybe even like 12 a.m. or past that. And I group texted all my sisters, all my cousins that just had babies, and was like, what the heck am I supposed to do? A lot of them told me to like pump, but also to be careful, because if you pump too much, that it could actually cause your breast to make more milk. They also told me to express, which expressing is when you like do it by hand and release the milk that way. But they also said be careful expressing, because that might cause you to create more milk as well. So honestly, it was really confusing for me to like release, because I didn't know like how much milk to like let out. I guess the rule of thumb is to where like the engorgement goes down, but not too much to where they're like overly tender, because once your breasts feel like there's no milk left, they're like, okay, all the milk came out, now we need to actually work overtime and make more milk, which I didn't want to do, because I was already having like a huge supply where like my boobs were just like squirting milk non-stop. Yeah, I told you this was gonna be TMI. But my boobs were just like squirting milk and dripping milk non-stop. I don't even want to say, okay, like they were dripping, but they were like squirting and they just would not stop. So I didn't want to overly express and overly pump. Is overly a word? So that was really confusing for me. On that note, by the way, if you guys haven't ordered your breast pump, make sure you guys have one on hand as soon as you get home. I know some insurance companies actually provide free breast pumps. I'm not too sure how that works for all insurance companies, but I know that I got mine for free through my insurance. So you guys definitely want to check that out. And if your insurance doesn't provide a breast pump, then I highly suggest you put one on your registry and have one ready for when you guys get home from the hospital. So again, after the hospital was when things started to get really painful. And I think it's because of the hospital. I was there for like 3 days. I think my milk supply was still like trying to come in. So that's probably why like I didn't feel like really engorged, or I didn't feel like all the pains that came along after. I don't really want to make this like a product-based video, but I just want to add that things that really helped me during that time of engorgement were like heating and cooling pads. They actually make some, which I'll probably try to link down below or insert a picture. But they have like ones that just sit on the top and kind of like go around the nipple part, and it's honestly really like the most comforting thing when you're feeling really swollen and really engorged. Another thing that really helped me out was having a haka. I actually have one already, but this is a haka. So what this does is it actually catches all your milk. Like I said, I was actually very lucky and I had a huge supply. I know some people struggle with not being able to produce milk, and honestly, again, this is not bragging. And sometimes I don't even like saying this to like friends or family when I'm talking about my experience, just because I know it could be a little bit sensitive. But honestly, like I had a really good supply of milk. I had no problems producing milk at all. Like I had a ton of milk. I can't even remember how many ounces, but I want to say that those little, I think like 8-ounce bottles, like I could fill those up just real easily. So this haka helped a lot, because when I was engorged and like I said, milk was like squirting out or like dripping out like crazy, I would nurse Maddie on one side, and then on the other side I would have this, because your boobs would let down together. So this thing just kind of like suctions on, and I would just like have this catching all the milk while I was nursing Maddie on the other side. So if you guys don't have one of these, I'll link them down below. These are like the best things ever. So aside from engorgement, I just remember my nipples being so chapped and like really tender and painful. I'm sure it's because I wasn't used to nursing that my nipples just couldn't really handle like all the friction that, you know, was going on with all the breastfeeding. But this all became really difficult for me. So again, I'm talking within like 2 days of coming home. Actually, it lasted for much longer than that. But I mean, like the first night, the second night, it was just so painful. I was in so much pain where I hated breastfeeding, and honestly, I dreaded feeding time. And you know, when they're young like that, when they're newborns, they need to feed like every hour. Honestly, I just dreaded that so much. Like, I just remember sitting on the floor crying, or you know, like just trying to be able to sleep. And then as soon as I would hear her crying, like I would just end up crying because I just knew that it was time to feed and I didn't want to feed. We did have formula on hand, but again, I really wanted to make this breastfeeding thing work because that was just my personal preference, where it's like I didn't want to give up and I really wanted to exclusively breastfeed Maddie. A part of me really wanted to try formula, but a greater part of me really wanted to make this breastfeeding thing work. So I remember just crying my eyes out, trying to get her to latch. Oh, and that's another thing. For some reason, like a couple of days after the hospital, she just would not latch. It was weird because it was like I knew I was producing milk, but I was worried, like, did I have like clogged ducts? Because that's a thing. Like, there's so much things that comes along with breastfeeding. You can get like clogged ducts where it's like the milk doesn't come out and then you have to like express it or massage it a certain way to like clear it out. But yeah, I was just like starting to panic because it was like she wasn't latching on and I just didn't know why. And I was getting really worried about that. And then that just added to everything as well. Like aside from all the pains and just all the confusion of what to do with my boobs, like I was like starting to stress out, like my baby is not feeding. Like she's crying uncontrollably, she's hungry, and I'm unable to provide her with the food that she needs. It was crazy too because like I said, at the hospital, things were so easy, things went so smooth. Like I was able to comfortably hold her and like latch her on, you know, with the cradling position. And then after that, when we got home, like the cradling position just didn't work for us at home. I had a boppy, which if you guys don't know what that is, I have one, but it's like in the other room. But it just goes around your belly, and the boppy really helps because it's like, it gives you support, which I really needed because for some reason with her not latching, like I was just getting so tired of trying all these different positions. They have so many positions with breastfeeding. Like you could lay down and breastfeed, you could like do a little football hold where like her body goes this way and then you're holding her head like a football. And then they have like the cradling, the traditional like cradling position. Sorry if this video is a mess, by the way. I just feel like I'm throwing so many things at you guys at once. So there was just so much going on for me as a new mom. Besides all the breast pain, besides the feeling that I wasn't feeding her and that she wasn't being like nourished properly, I also was feeling so much pain in like my arms, my back, and especially my wrist. So there's this thing that they call it, let me look it up. So I had a wrist pain that was killing me, and before I read this off to you guys really quick, you know, I was holding her, like trying to get her to latch, and you know, you can't really just leave her on the pillow because she needs like the support. And my wrist, like I found that it was always like turned down like this, which it was really hard for me to like keep it straight. It just felt like comfortable that way, even though it was uncomfortable. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't even know how to pronounce this, but it's called like decurvain. I don't know, tenosynovitis. Oh my God, what? But basically it's called mother's wrist or baby wrist. So it's actually a thing, and it says here, new mothers can get painful thumbs and wrists. This is because of the extra pressure on their hands from lifting and holding their babies. So yeah, I don't know. My wrists were just like super painful. And then I started getting like a lot of like neck pain back here. And again, it was all because I was trying to find like this perfect position for her to latch. And I think I was just kind of like this, and like my shoulders would just be up and like sore and like tight. And basically I just couldn't find a comfortable position for her to latch, or even a comfortable position for me to just like work this whole thing out. So I actually went through my emails and saw that exactly 10 days after giving birth, on January 22nd, that I actually hired a lactation consultant, or I booked with a lactation consultant. I was really at the point of like throwing in the towel. I was crying every single night within that span of like 10 days. Even after seeing a lactation consultant actually was really difficult still. But for the first couple of months, I was just like crying every single night. I was having the most difficult time. And I just remember my husband telling me like, okay, you know what, like enough is enough. Like, it's okay, just give her formula, because he saw that I was really struggling. But again, my personal preference, like, I really wanted to make this breastfeeding journey work, and I really wanted to make sure that I didn't throw in the towel until I exhausted like all my resources and really just gave every last bit of me. So even though I really wanted to try formulas to just give myself like a mental, physical, and emotional break, I was like super exhausted, but I just really wanted to keep going. Honestly guys, at this point, I just want to tell you guys that breastfeeding is so hard. And like, if you guys are up at night crying, if you guys are struggling, if you guys want to throw in the towel, like, I completely understand. But I do want to add that if you guys really want to make this happen, like, try to stick to it as best as you can and really just like utilize all of your resources, because it does get better. So on the day of the appointment with the lactation consultant, she came and she was honestly super sweet and super nice. So how this whole appointment went was, I reached out to her actually like, I think it was like 12 a.m. one night, and I was just really like crying. I really wanted to throw in the towel. I messaged her, and this was all like by email, and I said, I kind of expressed to her that, hey, I need you ASAP. Like, I'm about to throw in the towel and I really don't want to. I really want to keep breastfeeding, but this is just like such a struggle for me. Like, I'm about to give up tomorrow. When can I come see you? And within a couple hours, she actually messaged me back and was so compassionate and was just so kind and was like, hey, I totally understand. When can I come? I think I had emailed her on the 19th, and then she came on the 22nd. I'm really thankful that she came so fast, because honestly, like, I was really just ready to give up. She came over, which, by the way, if you guys are booking a lactation consultant and they're having you like maybe come in office or something like that, I highly suggest to get somebody who's gonna come over and see your environment and work with you in your environment, because this is where you are going to be breastfeeding. This is where you need to feel comfortable, and this is where they need to work with you. That's just my personal opinion, because I know I could have went to like Kaiser and things like that, but I really wanted someone who was gonna help me in my own home, in my rocking chair, in my bed, and, you know, really just help me like with my environment. So she came in and it was honestly just the most sweetest, and she was just so empathetic from the beginning, and she really heard me and my story and was just like listening to all my struggles. My husband was there as well, just so he could be a part of this, and I wanted him to be able to see what she was helping me with, so he could remind me and be able to help me too when it was just like us two. But she came in and basically had me take my baby, take Maddie, and just go with like a normal feeding session. I grabbed Maddie, I tried to latch her on. She could see where like I was like struggling. She could see like my posture. She could see why I was having like all these pains. And basically she just did like a full evaluation on that first appointment and really helped me to like relax. And then she also gave me latching tips. So again, not to be TMI, but tips on how to like squeeze your nipple so that way you could just like flick it in the baby's mouth. And she gave me tips on like, you know, timing on like when to like, when the baby opens her mouth, trying to bob for your boob, on how to like flick your boob in there and like get your nipple in there. So honestly, it was really helpful. I'm not gonna lie and say that right after that appointment, everything was a breeze. It definitely wasn't. It took like probably a couple months, honestly, till I got the hang of everything. But just honestly, having her and being able to text her and message her was a lot of help. And having my husband being able to remind me to like relax my back and, you know, take deep breaths and like fix my wrist positioning was just really helpful. After that lactation appointment, I can say I was left with like a whole bunch of confidence. I felt a little bit better, but honestly, I didn't feel, again, amazing. Like, things weren't just like a quick fix after that. I still really had to like implement all of these techniques that she taught me, and it was still really hard. Like, I was still crying every night. I was still in so much pain. My nipples were hurting. And I think I want to add that too, just for any new moms out there, is that your nipples are gonna hurt, your boobs are gonna hurt. It's gonna be so freaking painful like the first couple of months. But once you get past that, if you stick it through, it gets so much better, and like your boobs get used to it, your nipples get used to it, your milk supply eventually regulates to where the engorgement is not as bad as it is in the beginning, and things do definitely get easier. I want to say it was around like probably the end of March, or maybe even the end of April, maybe like 3-4 months in, that's when things started to get easier, and Maddie and I just got the hang of things. She was able to latch on and I was able to get her to latch on, which, by the way, too, it's not always just us, right? So just don't feel too much pressure on yourself. It's also the baby too, is that they have to learn the process as well, or they have to learn how to latch on as well. So I want to say that probably 4 months in, that's when we kind of got this thing down. Honestly, my breastfeeding journey I want to say, you know, I hear a lot of people who are unable to produce. Luckily, I was able to produce a ton of milk, but I do want to say still, like, you know, everybody's breastfeeding journey is different, and it was still hard for me in my own ways. But looking back now and just seeing how far we've come, that it's already been 2 and almost a half years that we've been exclusively breastfeeding, I'm honestly so grateful for that I didn't throw in the towel and that I just kept going with it, even through all of those like painful nights and crying nights and everything like that. I'm so thankful that I was able to get a lactation consultant that was really able to help me out. If you guys are local and you guys want her information, please like drop a comment or find me on Instagram and message me, and I'd be happy to share with you her information. I think it's just so important to have like a supportive group of people around you to like just encourage you and to keep you going through the process if that's really what you want to do. Luckily, my husband was just really supportive, and you know, each night when I was crying, he would try to rub my back and try to help me out as much as possible. I do want to add though, he did like mention a couple times like, hey, like let's just do formula. And honestly, like I would get annoyed hearing that because that's not what I wanted to do. So, you know, sometimes just understand too, people are not going to understand what you want, and they're not going to see like, or I should say they're not going to be like on the same page as you all the time. They're going to see that you're struggling, and then they might think that, oh, let's suggest formula and that might help her feel better. Honestly, when people would suggest formula, like I would just get so irritated because I was like, no, like I want you to encourage me on my breastfeeding journey. Like this is what I want to do. So definitely try to find a supportive group of friends. If you guys don't have a lot of mom friends, I actually didn't have a lot of mom friends at the time. I had a couple cousins and sisters though that of course have had babies. I definitely suggest to maybe join like Facebook groups. Like there's a bunch of like breastfeeding groups on Facebook where moms are just like kind of venting and sharing their stories and their struggles as well, and it's very encouraging. There's a bunch of groups that also meet up. I think like around my area, it's called the La Leche League, and they basically are a group of moms who actually hold like meetings in person, and they kind of help you get connected with like lactation consultants, or I think actually they are lactation consultants themselves as well. I don't know, I joined the group, but I actually never made it to any of the meetups, but I know that like a lot of people just find them very, very helpful. I also want to add that other than just getting through the first few months of breastfeeding, there are so many times too that you're just gonna need to like get yourself together, and you're gonna like kind of, I don't know, maybe feel a little like confused again. Like for example, like sleep regressions or just like regressions with development. Our babies go through like so many different milestones. I think there's one at like 4 months, and I think it's like maybe 6 or 8 months, and then like 9 months, and then 12 months, and then 18 months. But our babies go through so many different like developmental milestones, which could also affect how they're breastfeeding. So just keep in mind that you're gonna run into, or you might run into that kind of thing where they're not nursing just because they're having a regression and they're having a hard time. And just stick through it. Just find somebody to talk to and just do your research. Like there's a lot of good resources online, like I think The Bump or What to Expect, Baby Center. They kind of like walk you through all these milestones that your baby's going through, which can kind of point out why they're probably having a hard time like breastfeed and things like that. I remember like throughout this whole journey too, there's been a lot of times where I know I've said that I've made a lot of milk, but there's also been a lot of times where I felt that I actually wasn't making milk. And I don't know if it was like maybe stress, because we did have like a couple of moves. You know, this whole pandemic happened. So I felt also like there was a time where I wasn't letting down. And I think that's also like a scary thing too, is like at first you can feel the letdown, you can feel when your milk is coming. And then once your milk regulates, there comes a point where you actually don't feel that sensation anymore. So you're kind of like confused. It's like, okay, is my milk coming out? Or, you know, things like that. So just try not to stress about it. And again, always like talk to like a consultant, or just like do your research online. Try to drink tons of water, keep your health like up to par as much as possible, just so that way your body can make all the milk that it needs to. I know as a new mom, it's so hard to like keep up with like eating. I just remember like I was having the hardest time. I remember I was having the hardest time trying to eat properly because I was just like so tired. I just felt so busy. Like if I wasn't holding and soothing the baby, I was nursing her. If I wasn't nursing her, I was trying to get sleep in. If I wasn't getting sleep in, I was taking care of myself, trying to like shower and brush my teeth. It just felt like there was like no time to eat properly. So just do your best to like keep healthy snacks on hand. Try to have like prepped meals and stuff like that. So that way, you know, you're definitely filling your cup as well as filling your baby's cup. Like kind of literally, because you know, you're like filling your baby. So I hope my breastfeeding journey helps you guys out if you guys are new moms or if you guys are struggling right now. It's crazy to say that, again, I've made it to like 2 years of exclusively breastfeeding, no bottle, no formula. If you have to go that route, you have to go that route. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But again, if you're like me and you really want to make this breastfeeding thing happen, just please use all the resources you can. Hang in there. I know it's like mentally draining and just emotionally draining. And sometimes like when you're up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and you're just crying and in so much pain, like you just feel like so alone in the world. Honestly, there are a ton of moms going through the same thing that you're going through. I was one of them. And I'd be more than happy to be a friend if you guys need someone to talk to. You guys can add me on Instagram. But I'd be more than happy to talk to you guys more about my breastfeeding journey, to answer any questions that you guys might have. I'm not a professional. I'm not a pro. This is like my first child. I'm actually really nervous to see how things are gonna go with my second child, only because I know that every child is different. Every experience is different with every baby. So wish me luck that things are gonna go smooth this time around. But yeah, guys, breastfeeding is definitely really hard, and it's especially hard when you're a new mom trying to do everything on your own, trying to figure everything out on your own. I will say that I found a ton of resources online. I know usually people say like, oh, don't trust things you see online, but I mean like as far as like support and just like tips to help you guys get through it, I think there are a lot of good resources online and a lot of good like mom blogs that kind of help you out, and a lot of even good like YouTube videos that will help you guys out to kind of just get through it. So to all of my new mamas out there, I'm sending you guys so much love. I'm sending you guys hugs and kisses and so much healing during this time. If you guys are struggling with your breastfeeding journey, I totally understand. It is like the hardest thing. Please don't feel like you guys are alone. If you guys need a friend, you guys can leave comments down below or reach out to me on Instagram, and I would love to talk to you guys more about my breastfeeding journey and just be there for you guys if you guys just need somebody to talk to. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you guys next time. Bye.